remind us a little bit about what we're doing and why we're doing it. We have family devotional guides to be able to give you the opportunity as a family to reinforce throughout the week what we're doing on Sunday and to do it as a family. Part of the reason we're doing what we're doing is to have a unified, all ages, all parts of the church, all be on one page, and that actually helps. If you come on Sunday and you hear 3 different messages, it's hard to take that in. That's part of the reason why it's hard to read Proverbs. I don't know if you experience this or not, but if you read Proverbs, boom, 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 it's a different thought every 2 lines. And so it's difficult. So, I don't know if you remember or not, but we did Proverbs topically one time so that you could get all of what Proverbs says, but all in one particular area, so you could concentrate on that area. So as a church, I really urge you as a family to do the best you can to keep through the week the things that we're doing here together. And then just the opportunity for you as an individual to be a part of a connection group and to be in the lesson yourself, because it's really hard to lead a family if you're not doing it yourself. So, hypocrisy really does actually damage our ability to lead and our ability to instruct our kids and so on and so forth. So just understand what we're doing and how we're doing it, the message in the service, the connection groups for adults, for students, and for children. They're all the same for one reason, and that is to keep us all on the same page together, to help us get it together. Amen? So, today is about Jacob and Esau. And I really like the opportunity to be able to preach this message, because what Isaac said and what Jason said with his life today, and the reality of dealing with ourselves, and how hard that really is to do. So just, to give a quick synopsis, Jacob and Esau, it's all about a guy who took the easy way and could not deny himself on a simple thing of just a meal. They are twin brothers, and there's a lot to do with the sovereignty of God. And God said from the beginning that Jacob would be the one and Esau wouldn't. And some people have trouble with God because God knows in advance what you're going to do before you even choose, and yet it's still your choice. I think that we can get nuances of that, in our own society if we really take a look. I remember when my dad told me all that he knew about me that I didn't know he knew, and I was hiding from him. And then my mother told me she had eyes in the back of her head, and she was asleep one time, and I looked, and she didn't. But the bottom line is that, there is a sense at which we know things about each other, and we're not necessarily determining them, but they just happen. So I want us to take a look at this today, and I want us to get a really important point that is becoming more and more of a foundational understanding for me as a believer and also as a pastor, as a father and a husband and just a man of God, is to really understand this. And so Esau and Jacob really do illustrate it. So Esau gave up his birthright for a bowl of soup, for a meal. That's hard to believe, isn't it? I mean, seriously, do you struggle with believing that somebody would do that? Well, I don't, because I've done it. You've done it. We've all done it. We just don't think of it like that. I've seen people give up their whole lives for one moment. They didn't really know they were giving up their whole lives, but they did. A person has an affair, ruins their marriage, changes their family forever for one moment's pleasure. Give up their whole life for one moment. Cheat on a test and give up your entire degree, let alone your integrity. You see, these kind of things happen all the time. They happen all the time. I could meet somebody right after this church service and buy anything I want illegally. Anything. I can get it. There are ways to find it. And what I want you to understand is that a lot of people give up their actual lives for a simple pleasure. Here's a really big case in point. This is King Edward. And I gave you a little screenshot of what he did. His father died and he became King of England. Do you know what he did with that? He gave it up. Do you know what he gave it up for? A girl. A girl. I'm not going to judge anybody and so on, but he gave up an entire destiny for one particular lady. She was divorced twice. She wasn't even yet divorced, and he was involved with her. And we can carry on. We can talk about Charles and marrying Diane, and then what? The night of his wedding, what did he do? He went to go be with his mistress, you see. It's hard to understand these things. How could you do that? You know? So, Edward actually, after ruling less than 1 year, he becomes the first English monarch. Okay, that's saying something pretty significant because you've had some pretty strange monarchs. First monarch to voluntarily abdicate the throne. He chose to abdicate after the British government, public, and the Church of England condemned his decision to marry an American divorcee, which, besides that, he was having sex with her before she was divorced. And so, you know, these things really do happen in real life. People do things that are amazingly, they give up their whole life. They give up really the higher thing for the lesser thing because it's too much pain. So in Genesis chapter 25, when we see this moment where Jacob and Esau come to their particular time, there are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, an Aramean, Padan Aram, and the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her. Now, you know, this is kind of, I've never been pregnant, and I'm okay with that. And but you ladies, you know what it's like to deal with somebody inside you that has an independent will. And, you know, they put a foot over here, and, you know, it hurts, and put a foot over here, and you got to change your clothes. And I mean, you know, it's a rough existence, you know. But that's just normal. So I don't know what was going on here, but it must have been bigger than normal, okay? Whatever these boys were doing in there was rougher than usual. And the struggle that they had, she said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. And the one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. Now that's against most everything, isn't it? Okay? The eldest child does what? Most of the time. Are you guys mysterious on this? No, they usually rule everybody. Okay? And they grow up and they become bossy people. most of the time. And let alone the fact that God had established a tradition that the eldest son would be the one who would inherit both authority and possessions and so on. But in this case, God says in advance, before they're ever born, this struggle is going to end up with the older serving the younger. Okay? Verse 24, when her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak. So they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter and a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. And that's always the way it is too, isn't it? If you have more than one child, you find out something, don't you? They're all different. They're all different. They all have their own way, and they have their own, and they come from the same parents. They come from the same parents, and yet they're different. Isaac loved Esau like a typical male because he made his tummy better, because he ate his game. But Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I'm exhausted." Therefore his name was called Edom. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright right now." Here's the moment of truth. Here's the moment of truth. I think about the times in my life. One really interesting moment when I had a friend who said to me, "Let's go over to this guy's garage and let's take the paint that's in his garage and pour it all over his classic car." Yeah, there you go. Sounded like a good idea at the time. Got me in a lot of trouble. Had another friend one time say, "Hey, let's play with fire by this garage." Sounded like fun. Set the guy's garage on fire. Had another friend one time that asked me, said, "Hey, let's go into 7-Eleven, steal stuff, and see if we can get by with it." So we did. Didn't get by with it. What I'm trying to say is there have been many moments in my life where for the pleasure of friendship and the pleasure of risk and excitement, something Worlds of Fun sells every single day, I have given up the goodness and the right in my life. I'll never forget when I became a Christian, I became a follower of Jesus Christ, when I became a disciple of the Lord. My friend Mark Frenfelder called me to question on it because I wouldn't go to a party that I was no longer interested in being a part of anymore. And he just asked me, he said, "What, are you a Christian or something?" And I was like, "Oh my God, how did he know that?" I was hiding it, okay? I was trying to get by without anybody knowing. You know, I didn't want anybody to make fun of me. And I looked at Mark and I said, "Nope, not me." And man, I entered into a spiral that cost me a lot. All I had to do is answer that question painfully, possibly lose my friend Mark. But I didn't. I took the easy way out. Did I believe in Jesus? Yes, I did. Did Jesus take hold of me? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And when that came back to me was actually when my sister was in the hospital in a coma on a respirator in Denver General Hospital. It was that moment in the chapel of that hospital that I came back and said, "God, I'm sorry." I didn't do anything to my sister really, but I saw what was going on for her. And, tragedy brings reality, doesn't it? Tragedy brings reality. Makes it really hard. And down in that chapel, I came to know what I actually believed. But it cost me an awful lot before I got there. In verse 32, Esau said, "I'm about to die." Is he about to die? No, he's not about to die. No. Of what use is a birthright to me? Now, here's what he's saying. I'm hurting now. What use is something that's going to make me hurt now but give me something later? That's called delayed gratification. Delayed gratification. I remember when I was a senior in college, I couldn't understand, well, when I was in college, I couldn't understand seniors that quit their senior year. Could not understand that. I was like, you got to be kidding me. They get in their senior year and they quit college altogether. And then I became a senior in college. And you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to quit. I mean, my master's, my doctorate, all of it. I wanted to quit. I always wanted to quit, especially right before a test. You know, right before a paper, the night before something I had to do. You know, I didn't want to deny myself. Verse 33, Jacob said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Get that. Thus Esau despised his birthright. For what? For a momentary pleasure. For a momentary pleasure. This defines just about everything that goes wrong with us as believers. For a momentary pleasure, we give up what we need to hold on to. I've watched it time and time again. And as I take this understanding and I go back and I interpret my life, I find that that's really the issue for me most of the time. In Hebrews chapter 12, one of my favorite chapters, it talks about this to some degree. Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. And what is this actually talking about? This is talking about dealing with sin. This is talking about dealing with sin. One of the things that happens to believers is that we love God. We know God, and we believe in Him. We really do. It's deep down inside of us. It's true. And God has made His home. The Holy Spirit lives in our heart. But then we begin to compromise. Because it's a little hard to keep this faith. And here in America, as Christianity becomes less and less favorable and more difficult, you're going to find that less and less people are going to be coming to it. And that'll be hard for churches because budgets will shrink, attendance will shrink. Pastors who are actually interested in being approved and making money are going to compromise because it's a lot easier to compromise than it is to suffer. And I just want you to understand this is really the whole deal for us. Verse 14, strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness. Okay, now why is that all of a sudden in there? I'll tell you why. Because when God doesn't give you the life you want, you get ticked off at Him. You get mad. You ever tell a child no? And they look at you and they go like this, thank you so much. I know that you love me. I know that you're doing the right thing for me. I know that you care about me. No, that's not what they say. What do they say? Yeah, they scream. Sometimes they say they hate you. Okay? And the parent that gives into that is making a mistake. Do you know the problem they're having in China? They're having a nationwide problem. Do you know what their problem is? They limited their families to one child for decades, okay? So you got all these families have one child. What is the temptation for a house with one child? Spoil it. That's right. You know, parents struggle sometimes. And if you got two of them, They'll maybe compete for allegiance in the child's life or something like that. But siblings, when they come along, they don't give a rip. They don't care. They will thump you on the head. They're not, siblings will compete for the last French fry. I mean, they go after it, okay? And that's one of the things that's difficult, is because you see the pain of relationship. Now in China, they're having to reprogram their children because they are spoiled rotten. They will throw a hissy fit as adults. So they're sending them to training camps in droves. Now, here's the other thing that's going on. There's nobody to take care of the elderly because there's one child for two parents. There's no one to share the load. And so they're having a big problem with the parents that are now aging having anybody to care for them. Okay? So now they've done away with the one-child rule, and they're opening up outside adoption. Okay? Because how long does it take to make an adult child? Huh? 80 years. Well, they say the new 20 is 30, but I don't know. The bottom line is this. You cannot just make babies and they go just like that and become responsible people. There's no one to share the load. So they got to go out and get other people that have babies. And what I want you to understand is that this is really evidence of the fact that that country decided to skip the pain of having many children as a nation and decided to go with a shorter pain, and now they're having what? Big pain. A whole generation of people. I believe that that's happening all over the world. We have aborted an entire generation away so that we could have sex without responsibility, without accountability. In this passage, it tells us that the issue is to deal with this thing that we have in our lives. See to it no bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. When people decide to answer their pain with anger, it causes lots of problems. When the child cries and the man gets mad and shakes that baby until the stem brain, the stem of the brain is separated and the child dies. I mean, folks, do you understand what we got going on today? Okay? Do you understand what's happening? We are teaching people that pleasure is the absolute, and therefore the avoidance of pleasure is the only way to live your life. And it's causing significant problems. Notice this. Why in verse 16 does it bring this up? That no one is sexually immoral or unholy. Why would you bring this up in discipline? Well, because sex is a bodily desire. It has to be disciplined. Would you agree? It is an issue for us. Or unholy like Esau. Notice, now Esau's thrown in there, who sold his birthright for a single meal. For you know that afterward, when he desired to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, though he sought it with tears. Verse 18. For you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and tempest, and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that no further messages be spoken to them. For they could not endure the order that was given. If even a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant. This is a little bit hard to take on just like that, but understand he's just talking about the whole process of salvation. Then he goes on and says, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. Jesus' blood speaks more than the blood of a murdered brother, Abel. Jesus' blood speaks. And it floors me today to see how many people are acting like Jesus' sacrifice on the cross was nothing. That his blood is not actually a cleansing power. That he didn't satisfy an actual moral principle of the holiness of God in light of the sinfulness of people. Jesus' blood speaks. You know, there's churches today that won't sing about the blood. They won't sing about the blood. They might as well get rid of Mother's Day. Are you with me? Do you understand what I'm talking about? They don't want to deal with people's opinions. They don't want to deal with people's opinions. They'll deny the gospel because it's too hard to talk to a generation who acts like there's no blood. When you go to the store, you go to the meat counter, do you have any idea what it takes to put that meat in that counter? Most of you don't. Most of you don't. I was a meat cutter. I know what it takes. I've been to the killing floor. You can argue, vegetarian, whatever. But the bottom line is that somebody's got to give up something in order for you to live. Somebody has got to give up something in order for you to live. My point simply is this. The blood of Jesus Christ speaks. See that you do not refuse him who is speaking. Don't refuse Jesus Christ. There are not other ways to heaven. There's not other ways to the Father. Refuse Jesus and you refuse the salvation that God actually provides. But again, you're going to deal with a judgmental world that will tell you that you're wrong if you say there's only one way. And yet that's what the gospel actually says. For if they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, much less will we escape if we reject him who warns us from heaven. At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth but also the heavens. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of things that are shaken. That is, things that have been made in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. I love that phrase. It's one of my absolute core values. When things come in your life that you don't like, just remember this. God shakes what can be shaken so that which cannot be shaken will remain. I have been in so many situations of my life, short of my own experience of death, where I have been shaken, literally shaken. More pain than I could ever even take. And it's at that moment when you find out what you really believe. It's at that moment when you realize what you're really about. When your child throws a tantrum in front of all your friends, that's when you find out if you're a real parent or not. Are you going to reach over there and pick up that kicking, screaming kid? You better. If you teach that child that they can pain you into their convenience, you will ruin them forever. So I want you to understand this is a big deal here. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Amen? Doesn't matter what people say. If Christianity becomes illegal the world over, it doesn't change whether it's true or not. It just changes how much pleasure you get. You want to know why I like Abraham Lincoln? You want to know why I like George Washington? You want to know why I like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Because these people knew the pain they were facing, and they did not give in. You don't know this, but Lincoln told the people in Springfield before he left, I'm not going to survive this. He wasn't stupid. He knew it was a country that was divided. And he was not going to give up the principle. It took him a moment to figure out what the real deal was. He had to stop talking about states' rights and started focusing on what? The value of a human being. I want you to understand this is what it's all about. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For our God is a consuming fire. Have you ever been burnt? Huh? You ever burned up yourself? You ever give yourself up? It hurts. It's painful. It's painful. I wanted to point this out to you. I thought it was a good example. Good Care, Painful Choices. This is a book on ethics in medicine. It's actually interpreting Catholicism into the realities of all of the medical choices that we have today and so on. And notice the things that are on that list: abortion, newborns with disability, vitro fertilization, genetics, organ transplants, HIV, AIDS, death and dying, euthanasia, informed consent, healthcare reform, so on. And tries to actually give us some understanding, because you see, this is all about what? This is all about pain. Pain. And how we're going to answer it, how we're going to deal with it. When you look up communist countries, here's one of the things you find. The leaders please themselves. Are you with me? With absolute authority. Okay, so ain't nobody can complain. When you take the lid off of communism, here's what you find. The leaders are all taking care of themselves, right? Okay? Other forms and other systems don't allow that as much. It's all about taking care of people. You ever heard of a thing called public trust? It's what we need today. We need public trust. If you find out that everybody's cheating, is that okay? Is that all right with you? Well, why don't they keep the public trust? Because it's harder to care for people than to please yourself. It's harder. They might not get elected again. Oh boy. I want you to understand this, because this really is a part of life. At the beginning of chapter 12, it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted." Do you get this? Weary or faint-hearted. Did you ever quit in the middle of something? Huh? I've wanted to run away many, many times. Many, many times. I want to give up. I want to give in. I want to quit. It's hard. Very difficult. I want to encourage us to remember this, okay? Esau was not chosen by God because he would give up everything for just a simple pleasure. That's no good for him or for God or for the people. Now, Jacob was an example of moral fortitude, right? Huh? He was a professional liar. I mean, he was really good at it. Amen? But the bottom line is that God did what? Disciplined him. He met a better liar than himself. His father-in-law. He got him good, man. And you know, it's really funny. Have you ever seen it when, a kid really complains about another kid? And then right after that, they actually get all upset because the other kid did to them what they were doing to them. Have you ever seen that? Yeah. So I want you to understand, Jesus is the author and perfecter of our faith. And he suffered. So why do we think in following him that we're not going to suffer? We will suffer. We will suffer. Jesus promised it. You remember the old song, "I never promised you" what? Rose garden? Well, Jesus did not promise you an easy life in following him. He said what? Take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. How often? Daily. It's a daily choice. It's a daily choice. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted in your struggle against what? Sin. The denial of yourself. You have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And you have forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. The Lord disciplines those whom he what? Loves. And here's Hebrews 12:11. For the moment, all discipline seems what? Painful, rather than pleasant. But later, it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. When Jesus was on the cross, he was offered gall. Okay? Do you know what gall is? It's a mixture of things, but in essence, it was to separate him from his pain. They were offering him a less painful way. He denied it. Jesus would not allow himself to have Oxycontin, cocaine, marijuana, Jack, Bacardi 151 with a beer chaser. He wouldn't allow that. Why? Why? You do not live your life for God by the removal of pain. You lean into pain to follow God. That's called maturity, my friends. That's called maturity. Listen, I'm a big believer in your money. I love your money. Just give me your purse. Give me your wallet. Give me your stuff, okay? Why could I be in love with your money? Because it didn't cost me nothing. That's right. I'd be more than happy to take your money. I'm not going to take it. You got to give it to me, okay? But the bottom line is this. My money costs me what? Time and effort. So I'm not going to give it to you. And if I give you my money, that means I have less what? Time. Less time. This country is borrowing trillions upon trillions upon trillions. Consumer debt is at the highest level it's been since before 2008 when we suffered. All I'm trying to tell you is this, okay? Do not sell your birthright for a bowl of soup. Do not shrink back from pain in every area of your life. Now, here's something we got to remember, okay? Remember this? I had this last Sunday. What was this about? Car parts that are cheap? No, this was about what? My blind spot. I can't see behind me. I need somebody else to be there to help me. I need someone to help me. I want to encourage you today, in order to really face the pain of being a follower of Jesus Christ, we got to do it together. We got to encourage each other. We got to help each other. We got to be honest with one another. Okay? When I admit that I do things that are wrong, what is the challenge for me in that? Okay, just stand up and tell me the worst thing you've done. Go ahead. Let your obituary be complete. Look, folks, pride is a killer. It kills faith every time. And what I want you to understand is this. Pay attention to your life where you are not willing to face and accept pain and compromise because of it. And you're going to find where your faith is falling, and you're going to find where you need other people to help you. You know, we've had some real troubles here lately. Pastors of churches completely and totally coming out as if everything is okay. For what? Well, almost every time I've seen so far, it has to do with sex. So we got a pastor that now says he's homosexual, and it's okay, and he can still be a pastor, and he can still be a follower of Jesus Christ. I know a pastor that left his family for another woman and then denies that God even exists and devastated hundreds and hundreds of believers in this community. Made lots and lots of young people doubt whether God even exists anymore. For what? For sex. Don't be fooled. Food, sex, and safety. Food, sex, and safety. Are you with me? Food, sex, and safety. Those three areas are the biggest areas to handle. And it is where our faith is most tested and where our lives are most proven as to how we're really going to live. How we're really going to live. I want to encourage you. Pay close attention to Esau. Okay? He gave up everything for a bowl of soup. Hard to believe. No, it's not. We do it all the time. We do it all the time. Amen? Amen. Let's stand together. Ask yourself, what area of your life is hidden? Why are you hiding it? And are you willing to reveal it? What area of your life is hidden? Why are you hiding it? And are you willing to reveal it as we sing this song?